Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. This Exploring Energy presentation series is brought to you by the Montana Renewable Energy Association, whose mission is to foster the growth of renewable energy for all Montanans through education, advocacy, and industry engagement. Today's topic is commercial property assessed capital enhancements, and I'm very excited that today we are joined by Seth Lutter, who is the Associate Director of the Montana Facility and Finance Authority. In the 5 years Seth has been at MFFA, he has been involved in financing 40 loans, 28 bonds, and 29 grants, accumulating more than $1.2 billion in funding for local healthcare and pre-release centers. He helped the Montana Commercial Property Assessed Capital Enhancements Program, or CPACE program, where commercial businesses receive financing to upgrade or enhance their energy efficiency, water consumption, or renewable energy systems. Earlier, Seth was the Director of Counseling at Rural Dynamics, Inc., and was responsible for managing the largest housing counseling portfolio in the state of Montana. Seth received a bachelor's in history from the University of West Florida and a master's in public relations from Montana State University. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will go ahead and pass the mic over to you.
Perfect. Just make sure my video is working. There we go. I appreciate it, Andrew, for the introduction. And hello, everybody. I appreciate you joining in on my presentation on CPACE. So I'm also going to get a PowerPoint here up and running so we can hopefully get this going. So let's see. Hopefully everyone can see that. As Andrew said, my name is Seth Lutter. I am the Associate Director of the Montana Facility Finance Authority, and we are the statewide administrators of PACE, also known as CPACE, also known as Last Best PACE. So CPACE, basically what is it? So CPACE is a new financing option for businesses. As Andrew mentioned, it stands for Commercial Property Assessed Capital Enhancements. And what it does is it provides capital to cover the improvements of energy, water, as well as renewable energy for commercial businesses. So what it does is it saves, the savings of the financing of the CPACE financing has to cover the cost of the financing. There's potentially no out-of-pocket for the businesses. And also it's paid back on a special assessment on the property. And this is kind of the biggest difference of CPACE financing compared to other financings that property owners, business owners can get. You know, on a regular financing, if a property owner wants to get energy upgrades or they want to put solar panels on their roof, what they do is, you know, they can go out to a bank, they can try to get a loan for it. Usually it's higher interest, usually it's shorter terms, and then they pay it back every month, just like you would a regular mortgage, regular loan. On CPACE, what makes it different and what really makes it stand out is it's paid back on the special assessment on the property. So every May and November, when they're paying their taxes, there will be a CPACE assessment listed in their taxes that they would pay at that time. This does a myriad of different things for them as well as the lender that loans the money, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So, you know, a little bit about CPACE. CPACE has been around nationally for a little over 10 years. Just in the past 5 years, there's been $4 billion worth of financing for energy, water, and renewable energy measures in the past, just the past 5 years. Montana is the 38th state that made this legislation, and it just passed last April. So not just a month ago, but 13 months ago. And us at the Montana Facility Finance Authority, we had to build this new CPACE program. So we did from April until January of 2022. And January is really when CPACE launched. So it's really only been going on for about 4 months now. So we were kind of looking at, okay, why CPACE in Montana, right? So again, this is commercial property assessed capital enhancements. It is commercial properties for energy and water. And, you know, one of the questions that came to us was, why CPACE in Montana? Well, one of them is wasted energy means wasted money. We did what we usually do at Montana Facility Finance, this isn't all we do, we usually finance hospitals. And one of the hospitals we gave them a grant so that they could get an energy audit on their building. And this was Providence in Missoula. And it was a $15,000 grant. It was a pretty small grant, but they were able to use it to get this energy audit done. And when the energy audit came back to them, it had all these different measures that they could do. One of the measures was, if you just change your air handler system, not actually change the system out, but change the mechanisms for it and how it flows, you should be able to save money. And so they got when they were looking at the audit, they said, okay, that's the perfect thing for us to do to make sure that, you know, we can save money by reducing our energy costs. So Providence and Missoula, this was in 2019. They got the grant. They basically just did these upgrades that they needed to do, just changing the air handlers. It didn't cost them a single dollar because they had everything already there. And by not spending a single dollar on changing their energy, they were able to save $190,000 a year. And that's kind of what we mean by wasted energy. They were paying for the energy, and it was going through the air handler system and everything through the large hospital, but it wasn't done effectively and it wasn't done correctly. So they were wasting $190,000 a year. So in Montana, the average utility cost for commercial properties in Montana is $710 million. And that's $468 million for industrial. Basically what that means is, for Montana commercial and industrial buildings, they spend $1.2 billion a year on energy. Now, out of this, $353 million is what's considered wasted energy. So that's 30%. So for every commercial and industrial property owner, they're spending so much money on energy, and 30% of every single dollar that they're spending on energy is considered wasted. And that can be the air handler system. That can be, you know, when you drive down really any main street Montana and you see all these big brick buildings, and you know that they're heating the outside just as much as they're heating the inside of that building during the winter. Same thing with air conditioning in the summer. So when we look and we said, okay, why do we want this in Montana? Well, we want to reduce this wasted energy cost for property owners by as much as we can. That's really one of our goals. So why CPACE specifically? Well, I kind of mentioned a little earlier that it's more difficult to finance just energy efficiency or renewables or water consumption projects than, you know, regular capital systems. So the collateral for the property for the business might already be tied up somewhere. They might have shorter terms or higher rates. And just the high cost of financing makes a lot of these projects completely unable to happen. So they just don't break even. So, you know, how does CPACE work? Well, at the very beginning, CPACE finances cost-saving measures related to energy and water consumption. That is it. It cannot finance things that are not related to energy or water consumption. The terms are negotiated between the property owner and a private lender. So us at the Montana Facility Finance Authority, we're not lending out any money to do CPACE. We're kind of the referees. We're making sure that all the terms are correct. We're making sure that the property owner is doing everything they need to do. We're making sure that the private lender is doing everything they need to do. We're kind of in the middle, making sure that all the different parties are doing what the law that was enacted requires them to do. One of the areas that the law does require is consumer protection. And we instituted an independent review into this. So if a contractor goes to a building and says, yeah, we see that all these different energy and water consumption mechanisms can happen. So we think that it's going to cost, you know, this much money. We require an independent third-party review to look over those numbers to make sure that they're correct. It's required in the statute, and we require it for Montana PACE. So we do have a third-party review just to make sure that all the numbers really do make sense. And then the property owner gets a fixed rate financing for the useful life of the improvements. And you know, it says on here it can be up to 25 years or more. I think a term sheet that I just looked at a couple of weeks ago had up to 30 years. So we can definitely get cheaper rates for borrowers as well as longer terms, and that's one of the benefits. And then the payments are billed, collected, and enforced on the property taxes. I kind of mentioned this a little earlier, and the benefit for putting it on the property taxes is it's the best collateral position that a lender can have because they're on the property itself. They're not attached to the business. So what this means is the lender, if there is any sort of default, the lender basically goes through the same process as a tax default, which is senior to all others. So they can offer lower rates, they can offer longer terms because their collateral position is so well ingrained in this property that they can offer the business a lot better rates than they usually get. So here is a really fun, I really like this example. So again, remember that CPACE has only been around since January of 2022. So we are working on quite a few projects. We'll get into that in a second. But most of the case studies, all the case studies that we have right now are from other states because we haven't actually completed a financing as of yet. We have a lot in the works. A lot of them, I think one of them's looking at closing next week. So very exciting for us. But we don't have any case studies that have actually completed as of yet. We will soon. But the case studies I'm going to provide are ones that all have to do with solar, because we're talking about that today. And also are in states, or at least are projects in states that we are seeing in Montana as well. So this project right here in Colorado, you can see that the amount financed was $616,000. The total savings, $779,000. And then the different measures that they enacted to get there: lighting, insulation, the rooftop solar. So they were able to save $150,000 or so over a 20-year period. And it also increased the property value by $619,000. And there's a nice quote from the estate broker here: "I recommend CPACE because it can replace equity and because it doesn't affect you as a borrower. If you don't look at CPACE, you're leaving money on the table." And that's what we're seeing as well in a lot of projects that we're seeing in Montana. So different eligible properties, as I mentioned, it's for commercial properties. This is not for residential. However, we can also look at industrial properties, multifamily of 4 units or more, so a fourplex or higher, agricultural as well, and mixed use. So those are the eligible properties that are allowed under CPACE. And the projects can be new construction, so brand new construction, can be retrofits of old buildings. We can also do a retroactive PACE, which basically means we look back 3 years. So if someone has done solar in the past 3 years, we can look at getting that financed through PACE as well. So some typical measures that usually get financed that we're seeing as well: HVAC, water fixtures, roofing, the whole building envelope, solar, which is one of the big ones that we're seeing, lighting, elevators. So right now we have about 25 projects that we're working on with CPACE here in Montana. And I want to say every single one of these projects, or every single one of these measures, is in one of the projects that we're working on right now, which is really exciting for us. Solar seems to be one of the biggest, and it's really no big surprise, with the federal incentives going on with solar, and maybe depends on where you're at, you can get a USDA REAP grant for solar. The cost effectiveness of solar is really good right now for property owners. And so right now, I'd say about 50% of the projects we're looking at and talking with people on have a solar component. When we were talking, and we went to Minnesota to talk to their PACE program, about 70 to 75% of all their projects were just solar related. So solar is huge. We don't expect it to get any smaller here in Montana either. So speaking of solar, here's just a solar project. Amount financed was $670,000. The total savings on the full project was $1.1 million. But just as you can see, the year one savings was about $250,000. And the reason why year one savings is because incentive, because of grants, and any other type of maybe electric company incentive or something else that might be coming around that they might have in Connecticut that we might not have here. But they were able to, over this project, I mean, you can see on the picture a ton of solar panels. Overall, they're saving about $500,000 on this project, or about $440,000 by just switching over to solar. And then the quote at the bottom, our investment in solar will allow us to remain competitive by lowering our energy costs. And it's also a hedge against future energy volatility. And this is also really big, especially right now. We're working with a project in Missoula where they're looking at getting electronic vehicle stations, right? So EV stations at $5 a gallon of gas. Driving an electric car makes a lot more sense when you can fill up at $6. So it is, different things like this are really happening across the nation, and we're seeing a lot in Montana as well. So, where to start if you're a commercial property owner. So if you have a commercial property, agricultural, industrial, multifamily, if you're looking at a brand new project, so let's say new construction, or if you have a prior project of the past 3 years or a current project you're working on that you're looking at energy efficiency, renewables, or water consumption, reach out to the MFFA. We have an online application that you can fill out, and we help you get the independent review that's required, and we can help you close the financing. One of the requirements of CPACE is to go to the website and fill out an application. That way we have data and we can track the different projects that are happening throughout Montana. And it's really important to go through these steps. No matter, if you just have questions, reach out to us. We probably get, I want to say 2 or 3 emails or calls a day talking about CPACE. The executive director, Adam, and I, we counted up last week. We've done 1 presentation per day since this launched January 1st. So we're very fluent in what CPACE looks like and what it does. We can answer most any question that people have about CPACE. And if we can't, we will get the answers for you. But it's extremely important to reach out to us if you are a commercial or industrial business owner, so we can help you with the project. Another case study here, I think this is the last one I have, but it's one of my favorites, which is Just Solar. It's Just Solar on a general store in Texas. The amount financed was $120,000. They received a REAP grant, they got an electric rebate, and the payback on this system was just 10 years. So, usual solar has a payback of 20 to 25 years. So by getting these grants, by getting the REAP grant and the rebate and the federal incentive, and just by how well it pays back, they're after 10 years, every single day after that is savings for this general store. They mention energy savings and electrical outages are a big problem when you're in the retail business. I need reliable power to operate my sales terminals as well as credit card processing. Last year that Texas had all those electrical issues. If you can have solar on your building, you have batteries as well that's connected, you can have power, and that's really important. And that's important here in Montana as well, because we look outside and we think, oh, it's not warm out. Well, you don't need the heat for solar, you just need sun, and we have a heck of a lot of sun here in Montana. So other roles to also get involved. So if you're a contractor, we have a application. It's, I want to say, like 5 questions on our website. It's super easy to fill out. But if you're interested in being a CPACE contractor, get on there and submit your information. We will include you once we have enough. We have a few right now, but once we have enough contractors, we're going to put them on the website so we can direct people. If a property owner calls and says, I need a contractor, do you have anybody that you can recommend? Well, here's a list. So that's our goal, so that people can, business owners can find a contractor that really fits what they're looking for. And also if you're a lender. So what's really exciting about CPACE is, again, we're at MFFA, we're not financing it. This is the public market that is financing. So we have about a dozen or so local Montana banks that are interested in financing CPACE. And what we do is somebody calls or sends us an email and says, I'm looking for a lender. Perfect. Well, we'll have a list for you. Here's a list of lenders that are interested in doing CPACE. Here's the contact information, and go out there and talk to them. And they can give you their rates. They can give you their terms. Being that it doesn't go through us, we have no say in what the terms are, but that's why we also give you a list. So you can call 1 lender, you can call 2 lenders, you can call 5 lenders, and you can get a quote for what their terms will be for the project. So if you are a lender and you want to be on this list, definitely reach out and contact us. We don't have a lender registration on our website, but we do have a list of lenders. So reach out to us if you're interested in doing this. It's a great list of people that we currently have. They're really interested in financing CPACE, really interested in energy efficiency here in Montana. So where are we now? As I mentioned, we started the program January 1st of 2022, and we have 25 potential CPACE projects in 14 separate counties. If you can look at these counties, if you're a contractor on the line right now, you can look at these counties, and if you're in one of these counties, well, we have a project that's either in works or talking right now in your area. Same if you're a lender. And if you say, hey, I'm a lender, I work in Broadwater County, I work in Yellowstone, I'm interested in CPACE, let us know. We can get you connected with some of these projects. And right now we have 6 counties that have officially approved CPACE: Park, Missoula, Cascade, Gallatin, Broadwater, and Lincoln. And that makes up about 31% of Montana's population. So right now we cover 1/3 of the state already with just these 6 counties. And we are working with more counties as well. And one thing that I didn't hit on, which is why counties have to be involved. As I mentioned earlier, the financing, the CPACE financing goes onto the tax assessment of the property. That tax assessment is issued by the county. So we have to go through the county, so they put it on the tax assessment. That's basically the main county role that we have, is just for the county to approve, to say, yep, this is perfectly fine to happen. And then after that, the county collects the taxes like they usually would. And if they have a CPACE assessment on there, they'll collect the CPACE assessment. They then send the funds to us, and then we pay the lenders. So we just try to make it as easy as possible. So right now with our 6 counties that we have approved, again, we have like 32% of the state already covered. And we're talking with 7 other counties to get them involved as well. Once we get them involved, we'll have over 71% of the full state covered by CPACE. And where do we want to be? We want to be everywhere in Montana. So if you have a project that is not in one of the already approved counties, the 6 counties here: Park, Missoula, Cascade, Gallatin, Broadwater, Lincoln, but you have a project there, if you're a property owner or you're a contractor, reach out to us, because we have, what we do is we engage the counties. We make sure that they're involved, that if it's Yellowstone, Flathead, whoever else, we reach out to them and say, hey, we have projects, we really want to get them going. We have this contractor, we have this business that's really interested in CPACE. Let's get the process going. So, where do we want to be? We want CPACE to be everywhere in Montana as much as we can. And I'm definitely able to take a lot of questions. I know this is just kind of a 30-minute presentation on where CPACE is, but it's a really exciting new program that we have in Montana. There's, as I mentioned, we're the 38th state that has started it, but out of that 38 states, there's only, I want to say, 16 that have active programs. So it is new. It is a very innovative financing structure. And Montana is, we just started, but we are kind of at the forefront of helping businesses save money, of helping businesses retain jobs in difficult financial times, helping them kind of go against the norms in regards to increase in gas prices and energy costs. So we're really excited about the work that we're doing here in Montana, and we want to try to get as much solar out onto commercial buildings as possible. So I think I am ready for any questions that people might have.
Great. Thank you so much, Seth. Really appreciate it. And yeah, let's just go ahead and dive in with questions. I saw a couple already rolled in from the audience. So a reminder, if you do have a question, go ahead and use the chat function to submit it, and we will read it for Seth here and add it to the discussion. The first one here comes from Robin. The question is, Do you think CPACE is seen as a way to transition away from fossil fuel usage, or as an electrify everything strategy to eliminate emissions from heat trapping pollution? Heat pumps, for example, for space heating and cooling, as well as water heating, are price competitive when taking into account operating costs. And I know there's other technologies that are helping people conserve and save energy. So would you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, CPACE is just a mechanism to help businesses, cut their energy costs if they can, or water costs, or obviously renewable energy in regard to solar. It's just one tool in a toolbox to help businesses save money. Our real big push is, this is all about economic development. At MFFA, what we do is economic development. We've done it for 42 years in the healthcare field. So this is just another way that we can try and assist commercial property owners and like industrial, agricultural to get the savings that they need. And one of the things about CPACE is if it doesn't pay for itself, it can't happen. So the savings have to outweigh the cost. So it's not going to be replacing one system with something else that isn't as good or isn't as efficient. It has to pay for itself around the useful life of the program.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Seth. Here's a question which I'm particularly interested in too, about kind of combining financing options. Combinancing is doing that grammatically. So can you combine REAP grants, for example, with CPACE for solar? How would this work since CPACE is based off the assessed value of the upgrades?
So what's really exciting is when we were building CPACE, we wanted to make sure that we weren't putting roadblocks in front of people. We were just putting speed bumps, basically. So if someone is applying for a REAP grant, and let's say they get, usually it's right around 25% or less of the project. So let's say we have a $100,000 system. They apply for a REAP grant and they get approval, and that's at a 25%. So they're able to knock $25,000 off. We can utilize the cost, which is the actual cost then, after any sort of savings come in, any sort of soft savings as well. So we are looking at, through CPACE, financing $75,000 instead of the 100,000 because we have any other savings as well listed. So we can do the $75,000 over however long it pays itself off. So instead of a $100,000 system that might be 20 or 25 years, a $75,000 system might pay for itself in 15 years. So they can get a 15-year term on that instead of having to go all the way.
Excellent. Thanks for that. A follow-up question, which you sort of, I think, addressed during your discussion, but I'll ask it anyway, because I think there's more details to it. We have a question here about Flathead County, which decided kind of a wait and see approach as opposed to moving forward with CPACE at this time. Can you talk more about how maybe some of our listeners here who are maybe not commercial business owners, how can we help accelerate the adoption of CPACE in the counties that haven't done so already?
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken to quite a few like climate groups or local, just kind of citizen groups throughout Montana. And some of the best advice that I can give is, if you know your county commissioners, reach out. If they prefer email or call or writing a letter, just reach out and let them know that you are in support of CPACE, even though you might not be a business owner yourself. If you know of projects in that area, that's huge as well. Like you mentioned, Flathead is like, oh, we'll wait and see. Okay, and that's fine. When we get a project that is, however, really close to being done or needing CPACE, that's when we kind of step up the heat a little bit too, right? I mean, we want these projects to happen. So if you have a project in that area, perfect. Let's discuss it. Let's bring it in front of the county commission. But if you also have, if you're part of a climate group or part of a downtown group or anything like that, like discuss it with them as well. I mean, the best thing we can do is get businesses and groups to reach out to the county commission and let them know that this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that I want to happen. So if they can hear it from all these different areas, it's better than just having to hear it from us at MFFA.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess just one general comment, I think it's exciting too that a program like this seems to be, you talked a lot about climate groups, it seems to get support from a lot of different groups and particularly kind of a real nonpartisan and bipartisan coalition. I know when the bill passed, obviously it took several sessions to get the bill in the right, format that the legislature felt comfortable passing, but it did pass. And, I think particularly we should shout out to the Northern Plains Resource Council for their incredible work over a number of years to get it passed. But that's one of the things I like about the program in general, is how much it appeals to a really wide audience of different Montanans.
No, definitely. And like, I've spoken to, I want to say probably say a half dozen climate groups on what CPACE means. At my heart, I'm an economic developer, right? So I look at the money side, I look at that side for businesses. They're looking at it from a completely different side, but we all have the same goal, right? I mean, obviously I still support the climate aspect of it, but for me, I'm looking at, okay, how can I help businesses? How can I help ranchers save money? But we all have, if we can do the project, we're still getting the same result, which is phenomenal.
Right, exactly. Okay, let's see. A few more questions for you here, Seth. This one's very pointed. Is Lewis and Clark County one of the ones that you're currently working with?
Yes, it is. And if you are interested, reach out to the Lewis and Clark County Commissioners and let them know that you also support it. We've been in talks with them, I want to say, for probably about 2 months now. And we have a project, like we have a project that we've heard about, but they haven't actually come in and submitted an application. So whenever we go to them, like we would go to Flathead or anybody else, it's like, yeah, we have a project, but we don't have specifics yet. Once we actually have a project that we can go to, we can then discuss it with the county and say, we need this, and we have it by a certain date, so that they can kind of get their part together too.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Seth, do you have any ideas about whether condominiums count in the commercial category? I know there's a stipulation about dwellings with, I think, 4+ units or something, but can you talk about condominiums? Apparently this is a kind of an FAQ that a lot of people are getting.
It is. And condominiums, I'm working with one right now that's apartment building, but multiple owners and things like this. So it does fit under multifamily, which a multifamily unit is specifically 4 units or more under our legislation. So what we'll need to do is if somebody does have a condominium project or apartment complex that is owned by multiple parties, we need to go through it just to verify. But like on the surface, it makes sense as long as we have consent from every single one of the owners. We have consent from, if the owners have their own senior lenders, we need consent there. So there's a few different things that we need to fill out, but overall, condominiums are they are eligible under the program. We just have to make sure that they hit all the boxes. Excellent,
thanks. If you're willing to hang out, Seth, I think we have 2 more questions that we can take here. One of which comes from David. What is the effective cost of financing? So, for example, CPACE capital project cost plus CPACE management. And then can you talk a little bit about what happens maybe if the savings don't occur in the useful life, or if the business fails or moves or is sold? I'm sure some of that has to do with the way the contracts are written, but yeah, can you speak to some of those potential changes in the financing as the actual, years go on?
Yeah, no, I definitely can. And this answer might be a long one, but I'll try to get it in our time as much as possible. Yeah. So, the savings on the financing have to cover the costs of the financing, which also includes fees, interest rate, everything. So it has to, that is a requirement of the statute. Let's say we're really close, like the savings are, the expected savings are just a fraction off. The owner can put in their own money to lower the expense. So there's little aspects like that the owner can do to kind of lower some expense so the savings do match or exceed. We can also look at some soft costs as well. So we were working, before CPACE existed, we were working on a hospital program. I want to say it was in Macomb County. It was a smaller hospital, but they had a boiler that would basically, it was so old that they needed someone to come in every single year and manufacture parts, because they no longer made parts for this particular boiler anymore. And so what would happen is they bring this person in every single year. He'd manufacture parts. They do the parts. He'd leave. They know how much it would cost for him to come in every single year. They knew what the maintenance cost was specifically for this boiler. If we were able to finance a more efficient boiler for, let's say, this particular hospital, we can look at some of those soft costs. If they know every single year they spend $10,000 maintenance on this boiler, we can look at that as savings in CPACE. So again, we're not trying to create roadblocks, we're trying to create speed bumps. So if we can help them any way we can save money on the financing or the soft cost of the financing, then we're going to try to. Second part of your question, which was, David, about the defaults. So if somebody goes through and they don't pay, it would go through a regular tax assessment. And let's say they decide to sell the building, like someone wants to do upgrades, but they're going to retire, so they're going to go through that process. The CPACE follows the property. It doesn't follow the business. So if somebody has a property and they decide that, hey, I'm going to retire, I'm going to sell it, something, the next owner can come in there and take over the financing because it's attached to the property itself. Obviously, you know, these are all business owners. They have their own counsel and everything when they're going through and doing purchases. So they're going to obviously know that there's a lien on this property, a tax lien for CPACE. They're obviously going to be reaping the rewards because they're getting the building that has all these efficiencies in there. But they may also take over that financing, or the property owner can pay it off before they sell it. That's also another option. So there's, you know, little nuances like that, that again, the property owners and the buyers are sophisticated borrowers for the most part. They'll have their own way of doing that when it gets to that part. Andrew, was there another part of that question as well that I haven't addressed yet?
If the business fails, moves, or is sold, but I think you kind of covered that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if the business fails and they go through a default, it's going to go through their same process as a tax default. If there's also a senior lender on that, much like a regular financing, if there's a senior lender and the person isn't paying their taxes, you know, the senior lender might just pay those for them and then add it to their loan. There's a lot of different things that the bank might do. But in the 10 plus years that we've had CPACE nationwide, there hasn't been a single tax default on any of the properties to that point. So, I mean, in the billions of dollars, there hasn't been one. So either the senior lender is going to take over, or being that it's just a regular tax lien, let's say it goes through all the steps of the tax lien. So it's 3 years of defaulted payments. The county then has to try and sell the property so they can make up the tax lien. They might do that, but then the CPACE financing would be paid off, much like the defaulted taxes would be paid off because it's under the same assessment.
Great.
I know it's a little in the weeds, but
no, I mean, you know, that's why, you know, like you said earlier, I think people can reach out to you with more specific questions like that. And this one might be this will be the last one, just in the interest of time and respecting everyone's time today. And this one's also maybe in the weeds, but what are the interest rates that you typically see for these types of projects? Is there kind of a uniform or a range, or does that depend on the lender?
So it all depends on the lender. Nationwide, there was only a few lenders for the past, 10 or so years that were doing this. There were, a handful of national lenders, like 12 of them, and they would kind of set their rates. Now that we are, like, especially in Montana, we're very local, right? I prefer getting financing through a local bank or a credit union rather than going to a national bank. So, what we're seeing here in Montana, because we've looked at a term sheet, we've talked to different lenders, it's kind of in the, it's still a useful life of the product. So if something has a useful life of 10 years, it's going to be a 10-year term. It has a useful life of 25, you can look at a 25-year term. But we're looking at low fives, 5%. So like, I think one we looked at was 5.15 up to 5.5, depends on the term size. So we're still kind of in the mid fives. And where this, like, if you're looking at new construction financing, where this lands is what they call the mezzanine debt area. And right now, mezzanine debt is kind of like around 12 to 16%. If someone's building something in building a brand new building or apartment building or hotel, That's kind of where that would land in that area. So it's a huge amount of savings for new construction. And then if it's also a retrofit, we're still looking at that 5.5 range, but it can pay for a retrofit, it can pay for 100% of all the upgrades that are being done. So instead of needing, 10% or 12 or 15% financing, they can get a CPACE for the full project for 5.5.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Seth. I'm just typing our email addresses here into the chat box for everybody. So I know there were a couple questions that we didn't get to. Please feel free to email Seth or myself, and we'll be happy to share those responses with you once we get an answer together. And I just want to say thank you again so much, Seth, for joining us and sharing your expertise. This is really exciting. I think in particular, considering that we only began the program in January, to see kind of the cascade of dominoes that are falling over across the state is really, really exciting for this program. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it, Andrew, and everybody else on the phone as well. Definitely reach out if you have additional questions. And also, if you're in a county that doesn't have a CPACE district yet, reach out to your county commissioners and your groups to try to get these going. We want as many as possible. So I appreciate it, everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Seth. Just as a closing thought, the Exploring Energy series will continue next month. June 1st will be our presentation on energy subsidies. And this is one I'm very excited to present. There's a lot of talk generally about clean energy subsidies and how those work. And it turns out a lot of different energy sources get subsidies. So we're going to try and dig into the details on the different types of energy and the different types of subsidies that different energy sources get. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you in June.